Mr. Burlison for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Right now, public schools are really, in my opinion, failing to do their most basic duty, educating our children. We saw widespread closures during the COVID pandemic, which led to students falling behind in core subjects like reading and math, which, by the way, I oppose the closures and the lockdowns because it was an absolute scam, and the impact to our children, I think we'll see for an entire generation. But during that time, under the guise of COVID, Congress appropriated billions, $189 billion to the ESSER fund to restore educational services after COVID-19. Of course, like everything else, the government throws taxpayer dollars at. The money was often used inappropriately. And while there were some school districts that appropriately spent the funds, there were many, and unfortunately far too many, that used it for nonsense like DEI programs, critical race theory, gender ideology, and other work programming. And before anyone questions whether or not it actually happened, I'll point to my very own school district that I graduated from, which spent money implementing these programs. First and foremost, Congress has a responsibility to question how the schools are spending taxpayer dollars and how they're being effective in the use of those dollars. My first question is to Ms. Is it Gentiles?
Gentle with an S, so Gentles.
Gentles. Ms. Gentles, will expanding school choice, which is a very popular topic in many states, including Missouri, will that improve the student outcomes?
Yes, there have been close to 200 studies of existing school choice programs, and the vast majority of those do indicate that there are improvements in not just the participating students, but in the public school students in the surrounding area. Those competitive pressures improve the district services to the nearby students. So rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah, it's amazing how powerful competition can be. My other question, often whenever I'm discussing this topic, there are teachers that I think we all love teachers, but there's often a fear of how this might impact their livelihood, impact their opportunities. In your opinion, does expanding school choice help teachers?
Well, the fear comes from the unions who are concerned about losing the dues-paying members from the public system. There's absolutely no need for fear on the part of educators or those who care about them because, of course, education alternatives to the traditional public school need teachers. So teachers are teaching in these private schools and other education options. And again, when we talk about those studies, it's revealed that the teacher salaries in surrounding areas where you have school choice programs, those increase. So everybody benefits.
Yeah, and the sad part is that, would you agree that sometimes what the unions would be advocating for are in direct conflict with what benefits the students and what benefits the teachers?
Well, the teachers' unions are focused on increasing their dues-paying members,
right.
And the AFT represents Planned Parenthood staff members in some states, for example. They aren't necessarily representing educators, and they are in contrast to the needs of educators when they're advocating for policies that do not enforce discipline. That creates unsafe environments for teachers, for example.
Now, there are another number of types of different school choice endeavors within different states. Could you lay out or explain for those who are watching the different school choice opportunities and which ones work better in states that have experimented with this?
Well, according to EdChoice, 75% of students attend traditional public schools, and then you have 25% of students attending private schools, charter schools, magnet programs, and home education. So that's a quarter of the nation's students benefiting from alternatives to the traditional public school. There are studies of the charter schools that show that they serve low-income students in urban areas better than the residentially federally assigned public schools, and I've mentioned the private school studies. Within private school choice, you have a newer development called education savings accounts, and a growing number of states have these flexible spending accounts that allocate the state portion of the student funding to an account for the parent to draw down from, to use for tutoring, for tuition, for transportation, for technology, and therapies when you're talking about special needs children. And so these ESA programs are very popular among students with families of students with special needs.
Thank you. My time has expired.